Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakareshu Sarvada Om Ganana Antva Ganapati Gum Havamahe Kavin Kavinam Upashravastamam Jeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspatana Shrunvannuti Siddhasadhanam Om Shibuddhi Siddhi Shakti Sahita Shri Mahaganadipate Namo Namaha Om Bhagavate Shri Swami Narayanaya Namo Namaha Om Uchishta Ganapate Namaha Om Raja Ganapate Namaha Om Vijay Ganapate Namo Namaha Om Lakshmi Narayanaya Namo Namaha Om Nar Narayanaya Namo Namaha Om Namah Shivaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Rudraya सर्वमंगल मंगल्ये शिवे सर्वार्थ साधिके शरण्ये त्र्यंबके गौरी नारायणी नमोस्तुते श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः श्री सद्गुरुभ्यो नमो नमः ओम ऐं ह्रीं क्लीं चामुंडाय विच्चे श्रीं नमः ओम श्रीं ह्रीं श्रीं कमले कमलाले प्रसीद प्रसीद ओम श्रीं ह्रीं श्रीं श्री महालक्ष्मे नमः. Welcome to Daily Satsang. We are continuing our contemplation on the question about the Atma. What is the Atma? What do we mean by the Atma? How have great Acharyas described the Atma? And what is the realization behind it? So we are examining Vivek Chudamani, and in connection to that, other scriptures from other traditions and other places are all connected, especially Vachanamrutam of Bhagwan Swaminarayan, which we will get to in more detail after we set the foundation with Vivek Chudamani, as well as other related ideas. So we are looking at verse number 21. Verse number 21, we have looked at the question of Vairagya, what is meant by this word Vairagyam. So the verse actually is Tat Vairagyam. So Tat Vairagyam Jihasa Ya Darshana Shravanadhibhihi. See, Dehati Brahma Paryante Hi Anitte Bhoga Vastuni. This is the verse. So we break down by the meaning. So today we will examine what is meant by the Darshan Shravanadhibhihi, and then tomorrow we will cover the Dehadi Brahma Paryante. That's a bigger subject. Just to be clear, this word Darshan Shravanadhibhihi, it has to do with the experience of the senses, the five senses, Pancha Vishaya. So Darshan here, that doesn't mean like Darshan Shastra. The word is used in a different way. It is used that it is seeing with eyes. With our physical eyes, we see the external world of names and forms. So that is Darshan. Shravan is hearing. So seeing, hearing, Shravanadhi bihi. Shravanadhi bihi means meaning seeing, hearing, tasting. See, seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, and touching. 5. Shabda is hearing, Sparsha is touching, Roop is seeing, Rasa is tasting, and Gandha is smelling. Right? This is called Panch Vishaya. Vishaya meaning the objects. Vishaya meaning the 5 types of objects. Panch meaning 5. And the Panch Gnan Indriya. Gnan Indriya means not that the word Gnan is used here in relation to the meaning that we're capturing stimulus from outside and is giving us knowledge of the outside world. Indriya means sense organ. So the 5 sense organs, the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, they are giving us experience of the outside world, right? This is true. This is our experience. So first of all, this experience we have, we need to be clear where it is coming from. Where is the experience of the senses coming from? Well, the answer is as follows. First of all, there is something outside. There's some reality outside, some objects or something, whatever is outside. Then we have the senses through the brain, through the cranial nerves to detect the stimuli. And we know from neuroscience that the nerve stimulation is changing in certain frequencies And then somehow within the brain, all those signals get combined. And that's the mystery which nobody really knows the answer to. That somehow the brain, the mind, somehow give us this experience of the outside world. Like right now I'm seeing a computer screen. Right now I'm holding a recorder. Right now there's a room here. Okay. There's an experience of this world. But this experience of the world is created inside the brain, by the brain. Now we know if there's damage to any of the senses, the experience changes. Some people have lost their sense of taste, or they cannot taste certain sensations. Some people cannot smell because there's a damage to the organ itself, to the sense organ. So, what Shankaracharya ji is not talking about destroying the senses. He's not talking about completely obliterating all the experience of the senses. No, that's not what it is. In fact, it is recognizing the fullness of the sense experience when one is no longer pursuing it in a hyper-focused way. Hyper-focused pursuit of sense experience is what we can call desire. So the word jihasa is a desire that erupts due to mumukshutvam, to say this, that why am I running towards these five? It is a question one has to ask genuinely, openly, honestly, and patiently for oneself, to oneself. This is not a subject that, okay, we read some verse and okay, the sansar people are running after, we have some understanding, listen to something. No, it's not like that. Those who are serious in realizing the Atma have to start with the body and the senses. And in starting with the body and the senses, we are acknowledging the full range of experience that the senses provide. Is there something wrong with this type of full range? It's not a question of right and wrong. It is a question of how our internal power, energy, जिसको हम आंतरिक शक्ति कहते हैं, how that is being pulled by our desires, or through our desires, towards the Panch Vishayas. That is the whole ball game here. We are, as in the human frame, continuously pulled by the Panch Vishayas. So when Shankaracharya ji is asking us to examine this verse, and he is actually giving a definition of what is Vairagya, part of that definition is an eruption, it is an opening of the desire to stop running after the five types of objects. Now, if we actually did that, if we stopped running after them, what would happen? Does that mean we are not interacting with the five types of objects? No. What would naturally happen if you go logically with it? The individual would automatically put a boundary around how much interaction to have, and that boundary is not suppression, it is wisdom. It is created out of wisdom by realizing that the internal wealth, that is internal power, is being torn apart by running outside certain boundaries. I hope that point is clear. The boundary, maybe somebody has given a boundary. For example, in many sampradayas, like in Swaminarayan Sampradaya, there is Shikshapatri. Many boundaries are given there. For sadhus, there's Dharmamrut. There's different other acharyas have given other things. In Jainism, there's all kinds of boundaries. Even in Christianity, there are do's and don'ts. Everyone has that. That is still coming from somebody else. That's okay. We can start with that. But ultimately, it's our experience. For example, if I decide that I'm not going to drink any alcohol, be abstinent from alcohol, then where is that decision coming from? that there are so many people who drink alcohol. I'm just using it as an example. It could be anything. But after going through the experience, the individual decides that this experience is pulling my energies in a certain way which I don't want them to be pulled. I'm not going to go into that experience anymore. That realization from within about the damage that in any experience is creating to one's internal power, that internal realization is natural vairagya. It is not a superimposed by just rules. It's not a fight from inside. Oh, I shouldn't be drinking because somebody said so, because some guru said so, because this person said so. Okay, you can start with that. But still you're going to be fighting inside because part of you still wants to do that. So even if somebody puts an external restriction, even on themselves, the internal desire will just keep increasing and burn up. Now, it doesn't have to happen that way, but it could happen that way. By the same token, there is something to be said for keeping an external restriction with the intention of transmuting and overcoming the limitations from within. That's okay. But we don't want to be in a situation of an internal war. We don't want that. The problem with most people who are on the spiritual path, they are in a battle inside, unfortunately. And because they are in a battle situation, they lose the battle. You cannot win the battle with desire. You cannot fight with desire. You must understand the energy within desire, that is Shakti, that is Ichha Shakti. And that energy comes from Paramatma. So when we become aware of the energy inside Ichha Shakti, and we realize that this energy is not to be damaged by running after the Panch Vishayas, there is a natural activation of the Guru Tattva from inside, and that is Vairagya. I hope that makes sense. It is a natural, very clear, in Gujarati we can say Jnanatmak Vairagya. That means Vairagya that is enjoined and anointed with Jnana. So what is that Jnana? It is Jnana or Jnana of the energy in desire. We have so many desires without any end. But if we realize that just running after them and trying to fulfill them is using phenomenal amount of time, energy, money, so much, and even if you get what you want outside a certain range, it is going to be damaging to you just to create a certain experience. Is that really worth it? Is that really the price to pay? There is always an energetic and spiritual price to pay when we go beyond certain range of the five senses. People who act impulsively, people who act without giving this too much thought, they are just running blindly, not realizing the damage that is being caused, and if it's not even so much damage, not realizing the extraordinary amount of bondage, bandhan, that is being caused. So to really open the spiritual dimension into the Atma, Vairagya is a base. It is a stage of realization that supports bhakti, and it is that bhakti towards Paramatma by the grace of God, Bhagwan Krupa Sadhya hai, Sadhan Sadhya nahi hai. By the grace of God, on the devotee, the doorway into moksha opens. The one who opens the doorway into moksha, that is God, Bhagwan. Some people in Advaita Vedanta feel they can open the door themselves. Okay, go and try. I'm not saying no, you can go and try and see if you can open the door, see what happens. Maybe you can, I don't know. I'm not here to judge anybody. Go and try. I've come across people like this in my life who are so deep into Advaita Vedanta, they don't consider anything separate as God at all. And they consider they are everything, and they think they can do everything. But if you think you can actually do everything, see how limited you really are and see where you get stuck. The place where anybody will get stuck is in the causal body with desires. And you cannot burn the causal body away with your own efforts. This is the opinion of Bhagavan Swaminarayan, and this is my own experience also. Now, some people may disagree. If you disagree, okay, try. Who's binding you? Go and sit for dhyan. You'll see tremendous darkness inside. And in that darkness, there is a vortex of chakras. And there's the unknown dimension. And one can get lost in the unknown in dhyan without bhakti of Paramatma. And it is a very difficult path. Bhagavad Gita chapter 12 is very clear on this point. That kind of abstract meditation, you can wind up activating certain energies and mystical experiences and be lost in them for lifetimes. Some people even have Kundalini syndrome. They become mad because they have awakened energy and they don't know what to do with that. That energy is not to be awakened without proper guru and without ashray of Paramatma. Bhagwan ka ashray, and let God and the great sages, let it awaken naturally, gradually. Some people, by some sadhanas, they awaken Kundalini. They don't have the proper purification. They don't have sadhuta. They don't have vairagya. They don't have all these qualities. They awaken their energy and they become mad psychologically. So spirituality is not something to play around with. It is a high energy phenomena. It has to be awakened gradually with proper base and satsang. Ye jo baat hai, like this vairagya and all. This is not an ordinary thing. When you are in a state of vairagya, there's so much balance. And when the mind is completely balanced with tremendous energy, it is going to open from within. It is going to open all the blocks from within. But when it opens from within, the only thing, this is my opinion, the only thing that completely stabilizes that is total surrender to God. That I don't know anything, whatever is happening, let it happen, I am yours. I don't know anything. This happened with Mirabai. Mirabai's energy, Kundalini, was awakened all the way to Agnya Chakra. She was born with that. But that's why all of her kirtans are continuously longing for God, relying on Sri Krishna, continuously in love with Sri Krishna. She's one step away from full realization. You see, so these points are critical to understand. Internal power, there's so much power, it is not to be awakened without shuddhata, without sadhuta. In Swaminarayan Sampradaya, the emphasis is on saintliness. जिसके मन में साधुता होती है, the purity of purification of sadhuta, then that energy flows without any hindrance and it goes in the right direction automatically. You don't have to worry about it. That is called Bhakti Yoga. This point is discussed by Bhagwan Swaminarayan in Garada Pratham number 25 Vachanamrut. And he's talked about Ashtanga Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. And he says, in Bhakti Yoga, you bypass all of the stages, all of the problems of Ashtanga Yoga. But to solidify bhakti, Jnana, Vairagya and Dharma should be in place. Live your normal, simple, straightforward life and God will take care of you into the moksha. Isme problem kya hota hai? Even people on the spiritual path, they want to realize that, but they keep God on the side. Bhagwan ko jo side mein rakhte hain na, then their ego takes over, then their energies, even if they awaken, certain things happen, then that ahankar comes. And not only that, it can cause problems inside the system. Internal power, that is known as Kundalini, it is to be awakened very gradually and it is to be awakened naturally without any kind of obstruction or difficulty. And as long as there is lack of Vairagya, lack of Dharma, lack of Jnana, lack of Navada Bhakti, when these qualities are not there and somebody is just trying to awaken their energies, no, that is not going to work very well. There is really something called Kundalini syndrome. It is a condition that nobody has any answer to. People are gyrating and stuff like that. I've even seen people shouting and screaming and things like that. So that path is not a path for the general public, because that kind of thing is only possible when you have a present guru who is fully enlightened, who can help you progress in that way, and it's a very difficult kind of situation. So that's why scriptures like Vivek Chudamani, Bhagavad Gita, the Manan Chintan, Navda Bhakti, let the awakening happen gradually, properly. You cannot just awaken raw energy like that. That will be harmful actually. So energy is always raw. It has to be placed in the right direction for the benefit of the whole world and of oneself. With great power comes great responsibility. That's the difference between the Daivi and the Asuri. The Asuri, those Rakshasas that did all the tapasya, they still get the energy. They awaken certain siddhis and powers and they get vardhan. But what did they use it for? For their own ego, to destroy people, to hurt people. What's going on in the world today? All these nuclear weapons and God knows how many weapons and everything. What is that? It's ab Asuri bhave. It is to destroy others. It is raw power. Similarly, the same power could be used for constructive purposes. So when we are doing sadhana, the most important thing to understand is whatever our stage of evolution may be, always keep God in the forefront, Bhagwan, and say, I am just your servant. I don't know anything. When that bhav comes, I don't know anything, even though we may know so many things. Say, I don't know anything. I'm just your child in front of me. Wo jo balak vritti, that dasatva bhav, that feeling that I am just a sevak, that tremendous humility. Isme, when we have that, the energies inside of us flow naturally. That's why Sri Krishna said in the Gita, Nirmana moha jitasanga dosha. Stay out of the realm of the harmful ego. These are some just cautionary points to keep in mind, because there are people who are on the spiritual path with various gurus. They don't have access to the gurus. They're stuck somewhere. There are large numbers of people in Adhyatmic path that are stuck in between somewhere, because they have awakened through certain asanas and kriyas and things like that. They have awakened their energy and they're just trapped. They can't go up, they can't go down. They don't have access to the proper gurus. They don't have access to the physical gurus who may have even taught that thing, and they're just trapped. So gurus also should have some sense and responsibility what they're doing with thousands of people. They're teaching them kriyas and different asanas and things, and they're not present with them physically. How can you actually help the disciple? So one has to be very careful before doing all those kinds of Ashtanga Yoga sadhanas and different kinds of kriyas, and there's all different kinds of breathing exercises, and yes, they are there. And if you're following that, you have to have proper guidance all the way through. So energy is not to be awakened just for the sake of awakening that. So there's a different way to do that, and that is through dharma, jnana, vairagya, and bhakti. This is the most straightforward way, and you don't have to worry about energy awakening. It will naturally go in the right direction. See, when we have ahimsa vritti, our energies are already open. You don't have to try to open them. But when we are humble, our energies already are open. In humility, when we have devotional practice, our energies open. And yes, and then as the purification intensifies, our meditation intensifies. Dhyana. And as that intensifies, then one may have mystical experience, doesn't matter. Bhagwan, God is taking care of the devotee. In Swamini Vato, Gunatitananda Swami said, Bhagwan bhaktani rakshama છે. જેવી રીતે આંખ પાપણ આંખની રક્ષામાં છે, હાથ આપણા શરીરમાં રક્ષામાં છે. Meaning, but like just as the eyelids are protecting the eyes, our hands are protecting our body and for protection. He says Bhagwan protects the devotee. See the point. Even in Devi Upasana, we have Durga Raksha Kavach. See, Durga Raksha Kavach is Om Durge Durge Rakshini Tata Swaha. It's a Raksha Kavach. It's a protection. So, in any Upasana of any of the ways that God is worshipped in the world, when there is relying, it's called Sharanagati. Sharanagata Vatsal. Bhagwan ko Sharanagat Vatsal kehte hain. And हम शरणागति नहीं लेंगे भगवान की, then we will be stuck somewhere in the middle. And that is not advisable at all. So that is why and I mentioned this before, and I mention it again as these recordings are being made, that doesn't matter who the great avatars were or what the sages were, they have always worshipped somebody. Bhagwan Ram worshipped Shiva. Bhagwan Krishna worshipped Bhagwan Shiv and the Chaturbhuj Narayana. Bhagwan Mahadev ji is worshipping Devi and Vishnu. Hanuman ji is worshipping Bhagwan Ram. Lakshman ji worships Bhagwan Ram. Jesus is worshipping God. Everybody is in state of worship. Bhagwan Swaminarayan did worship of Sri Krishna Bhagwan, of Shaligram and as a bhakta. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is worshipping Sri Krishna Bhagwan. Everybody, even the Advaitic Acharyas, even like Shankaracharya, they are writing stotras and for worship. Why is that? Because that bhakti, upasana, should never ever be stopped. If it is stopped, there is every danger of getting stuck in between somewhere. Right? So I've said that before, I say it again, I'll say it again also, because this is so critical. Sometimes we start making some progress and then we get more interested in the mystical experience and forget Paramatma. So in Vachanamrut, Karada Pratham 49, Sajanand Swami, he mentioned it this way. He said, as you are meditating and concentrating on God, going further, you might see the 6 chakra, Shat chakra. He says, even if you see them, that is Bahya Drishti. That means that is externalized vision. You have to go beyond all that. Right? So the point here is that the spiritual path is very clear if we stay with the Dharma, Gnan, Vairagya, Bhakti. And along with that, yes, some yogasana, some breathing exercises, just keeping body very healthy, just keeping it healthy with exercise and good diet and maybe some little limited yogasana and all that is good. It's all fine. But sadhuta, जिसको हम संतत्व कहते हैं, that is the base. If that is not there, nothing is there. So, and that is the most important thing in life. That sense of really being able to see the whole reality and not be pulled by raga and dvesha, not be pulled by ahankar, not be pulled by the panch vishayas in 1,000 directions. And that will then lead us, that will allow us to evolve further and further carefully. So tomorrow we will go into the Dehadi Brahma Pariyante in more detail. That is the more metaphysical part, what that is, and I'm going to cover the 9 chakras also to some extent. What is Archi Marg? Where are these lokas? This is a little bit of a metaphysical discussion. We'll have that next 2 days or so. All right? Okay, thank you.